welcome to episode 3 of Micast. Hot off the heels of our highly successful return to Bet Show. Thank you for those of you that came down and visited on the stand, especially those of you that came up and told us that you'd heard about the fact we were going to be there from the podcast. So this is episode 3. Today it's an exciting one for us. We've got the big kahuna in here, Alex Tatham from Westcoast, who's going to be joining me talking about kind of the challenges of what distribution have had to deal with over the past year and a half, 2 years, and our partnership with Westcoast. Hope you enjoy it. We really enjoyed speaking to him. Alex supports us loads and we really appreciate it here at Misco. So hopefully you enjoy what he's got to say, and thank you for spending your time with us again. So hello and welcome to episode 3 of Micast. Privileged to be joined today by industry titan, legends,
Stop.
all those other words, Alex Tatham.
Delighted to be here, really good. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. So you were probably the first person when we put out our first post on LinkedIn. We said, kind of comment under the line who you'd like to see on here. There were a couple of the guys from Westcoast said, Alex would be great at this, and so.
I'm not quite sure what gives me that kind of status. And the fact that I'm the biggest influencer that Westcoast have got, quite frankly, that is a really serious point, frankly, because frankly I can't even spell TikTok.
Our social media guy Josh, who does the editing for this, I think he'd like to have us on TikTok, but I'm not sure.
I'll do my dance later.
Okay, good stuff. I look forward to it. So obviously kind of here to talk about distribution, supply, a number of things like that. One thing I wanted to touch on is as we move towards like a hybrid working model, I kind of see some similarities between Misco and Westcoast. I think one thing that has enabled us to be really successful throughout the past year, 2 years, we're a real office company.
Same.
And I think when we don't manufacture anything, really our only USP as a business is our culture. Yeah. And I think it's very difficult to harvest and harness a culture being entirely remote, right? We have a culture that is a real distinct and tangible thing. And I guess that's kind of not easy, but that's manageable for a business of our size. But as we grow, it gets more difficult. So I'd say to you at Westcoast, a much bigger beast than us, how do you kind of instill and harness that culture, especially with more of a hybrid?
Well, funny enough, we're not that hybrid. Yeah, actually, because we are much more of an office-based culture. We always have been. I think that we were in the office quicker than anyone else.
In the
pandemic. I mean, I'll tell you what, we were there fast. Yeah, and generally, we've been in the office as much as we can for as long as we can.
Yeah.
Clearly, we've got to protect our warehouse staff as well, and they're on the same site as well. So we really had a really important job to make sure that they were protected, because they've been the superheroes of this pandemic, let's be quite frank. Yeah, but our sales culture, we employ lots of people who interact with each other. Our product managers interact with our salespeople, interact with our technical people, interact with our customer services individuals. Yeah, it really is important. And actually, if we're all on site, we can get up and talk to each other, as opposed to sending them an email or sending them a Teams call. But actually, I think that you'll find more and more of us being almost 5 days a week on site.
Yeah.
Now we've got an element of hybrid working coming into our business, but I think actually it's more a reflection of people who get recruited. They ask about that, and they want some flexibility when you're recruiting, and it's hard recruiting at the moment.
That's kind of a difficult part of it.
I think you're right, but actually, I think that when you say there is some flexibility if you want it, they then don't want it. Yeah, because they come into the office because they want to be in the office. And I think that actually when you create a culture within the office, and it's much more fun in the office if you can try and get more people in. What's interesting is that so many of our customers, they say, well, is your office open? They go, absolutely it's open. There are only 2 people there. What is the point of 2 people being there? You need everyone there to create that culture and feed off each other so much more. So I think that is the key and the core focus of our business at Westcoast. And I applaud you for doing what you've done. And it's one of the reasons I think Misco have done so well over the course of the pandemic.
Yeah, so I agree, and I think for me in my role, vendors will call me up and say, like, Andrew, we want to come in and be on your sales floor, because to a degree we've kind of been the only game in town for that kind of thing, And I think probably similar to Westcoast, I know you've had the guys from Dynabook will tell me they've been in and done a really good kind of day with you guys, and Logitech when they launch, they come in, and I think vendors especially really appreciate. There are some resellers much bigger than us,
but that are really kind of spread out throughout the country, more hybrid than us. And I think for a vendor, how do you really move that account? How do you work with that reseller or that distributor to have joint aligned goals when it's so difficult to get in front of all the salespeople? Obviously, we have technology that helps do that now, and we, much like you, there is an element of hybrid to what we do, and we have virtual floor walks and we have remote calls for the guys that
but it's not as fun, is it?
It's not as fun, and it's not as easy, on spiff days and things like that to get involved in all this. And I guess there's going to be, I think we worked it pretty well and given everyone like that opportunity to be at home, but then we found people kind of flocking back towards the office. And I think the best way for us, at least, and I'd be interested to see if you found the same, has been to try and make the office the place that people want to be.
Well, I think a lot of people, particularly if you're young, haven't got fabulous offices and facilities to be able to work from home. And actually, when we opened the office, everyone came back because they were desperate to come back to the office. And they suddenly realised all the interactions and all those things that you can't put a price on. The soft skills, the soft interactions that you get working in the office were all there in spades. And I think that is, I'm certain, Westcoast did spectacularly over the past, the course of the pandemic, the past 2 years. And I'm certain that's one of the reasons that we've done that.
After the exact same thing.
Yeah, there's no question we've got to support hybrid working because a lot of the end users are going to hybrid working. And therefore, one of the joys of distribution, or I think one of the reasons it's done well, is that of course we're now delivering to homes because we do such a great job in retail. So actually having all that retail capability to be able to deliver and drop ship on behalf of resellers like yourself is a brilliant way of making sure that you can deliver to someone's home address and give them the entire hybrid working kit that they need to be able to do that. And that again has been a really exciting thing for us to be able to deliver on, and we are really good at that. At one point we were doing 40,000 orders a day. We're configuring 5,000 machines on behalf of schools and the public sector. 5,000 machines we were configuring per day. That is some, and when we were normally doing maybe 500 previously. So our configuration centre has immensely increased in size and capability.
Yeah, we use you quite a lot for kind of the
why would you use anyone else? Is there anyone else? The fact is, I'm delighted that we can, and I think it's that flexibility that we provide, the agility that we provide. Misco enables them to be able to provide something different to their customers. And I think that's the joy of Westcoast, is that we're so agile and flexible for you that Misco will really take an advantage of this. And I really hope that you can. And I generally think that is one of the great relationships that we've had with Misco. I'm really delighted about it.
Absolutely. It kind of brings me on to something else I wanted to touch upon. I'll preface it with kind of a quote that you made on another inferior podcast. I think you mentioned something about kind of every disty wants to talk about being a value-add disty, and sometimes as a distributor you just need to ship the product at a good price. I agree wholeheartedly, and I think sometimes distributors will claim value-add for really what is their job.
They're just trying to hold up their margins. I'm so sorry. I just think it is just wrong. To describe yourself as a value-added distributor. That just feels as though that you're trying to pigeonhole yourself to justify the fact that you can charge more for it. I'll give you the value, and I'll charge you for that value if you want it.
Clearly, you've invested an awful lot into your cloud business.
We have,
But that is a time where, it's not necessarily the cheapest when you look at a product level, let's say. So how do you decide, here's the times where we are going to add value, and here's the time where we want to be the most value with the best price?
Well, I think Microsoft is incredibly complicated these days. If you look at their new commerce experience and what you've all got to go through, you need someone to be able to steer you through that kind of, as opposed to just transacting with you.
Sure.
And actually, looking at the people that we do Westcoast Cloud with, there's a reason we're the Cloud Distributor of the Year, by the way. Yeah. There is a reason for that. And the reason that we're the biggest cloud partner in the country is because we do help our customers. Now, actually, depending on your level of investment within your cloud business, depends on how much you need from your distributor to do that. But if you are only transacting Microsoft with cloud, and that's all the transactions that you're doing, then you're not actually managing your customers here. So I would implore Misco to be able to make sure that they expand their focus in cloud. and actually use Westcoast for the value that they provide, as opposed to saying, well, actually, what I need to do is to be able to just transact it and it's a bit of Microsoft and no one, Actually, that is not how the world is moving at the moment. And your business needs to focus, I think, on being able to manage your customers. And I would suggest that that is a really important factor. And if you need Westcoast to be able to help you with that, then we will.
Always selling or respecting.
Always.
But so I agree, like Microsoft CSP tendencies can be a bit of a minefield. But I do think it's interesting, there is a place to add value and to have that, and it's just interesting to see where you place those, right? It's
well, look at the various things that our Westcoast cloud team do. We even do sales as a service, for our customers in some cases when they don't know how to sell it. So actually, we're providing different layers of support. And the fact is that it is the one area in distribution that provides 24/7 post-sales support. So we've got to have people on the phone no matter what time, because if your end users Microsoft goes down, well, actually they're going to phone you, and who are you going to phone? So we need to be able to help you with that kind of work. Looking at billing, have you seen an Azure bill recently? We do billing as a service. So there's a whole range of great products that Westcoast Cloud do. Our job is to support our resellers to do the bits that they can't do. And no one can invest tons and tons of stuff into everything. Well, one day that you will have that, and that's when we'll give you the different price that you need. Until then, you need some help.
I agree. Again, it wasn't kind of I knew that you would have a good answer on the cloud, but I think it
was brilliant.
It's just I think it's good to see there's a place for everything within distribution, right?
Yes.
So I think we talked earlier where we've booked the trend for a reseller of our size with Lenovo, HP, where over the past 2 years, their biggest partners have grown way bigger, but kind of that second tier of partners have struggled in terms of stock allocation, things like that. This is where I feel like Misco, having a product management team, a vendor management team, being able to not just do my own buying as a salesperson, but actually to have a look at the data across our sales floor, purchase intelligently using things like your 3PL, but doing stock buy-ins, being forecasting, being looking at stock that we know that the whole sales floor will look at. We do well when it's a tough market to buy in.
Well, it is tough now.
But so this question for me is, as a distributor, you have, let's say, a handful of partners who could hoover up all of the stock that comes in as an allocation. How do you decide how to allocate that small amount of stock that's coming in between the huge guys and that kind of second tier?
Okay, so the first thing is that we are scrupulously fair about first come, first serve.
Sure.
Okay, so we are absolutely fair about that. Now, that's not always the case, because all of a sudden you get a lump of stock and then we have to divvy it up between all of those people that have got back orders on the system. But generally, it's the person who put the order on first tends to get the stock allocation, because that's how our system works.
Sure.
However, in current shortage times that we've got, and sometimes we've had lead times last week of 42 weeks. That's next year. So actually, how do you manage some of these things? Our job is to get to a reseller's sales floor and help them with alternatives, because actually, very often we're so used to ordering a product and expecting to turn up in the next 10 days, 15 days, hopefully, quite quickly. But actually, that's no longer the case. So our job is to make sure that we sell the products that we've got in stock, and I can assure you that we've got plenty. We've got about 400 million in stock at the moment. But actually, selling you products that are available and making sure that actually we can help your salespeople add value to their customers by saying, don't order that, sir, because this one's got an extra 2 ports, an extra £5, but actually you can have it tomorrow. And they go, well, no, that's a great idea. So actually really understanding, don't just take the orders, we need to help salespeople sell and cross-sell into products that are available. And we're absolutely, Westcoast have done a great job in that space.
Yeah, and we've found success in doing that as well. So we used to do, let's say for example, we used to do a lot of T14s with Lenovo. Over the past year, our Lenovo workstation business has gone up hugely as we've managed to sell people up to the P series.
Yes.
Where there's actually been slightly better availability. We had there's been a long lead time on Yogas, and Dyno came in and talked about how their X30s works well against it if there's none available, and so and you guys have been a part of a lot of that as well. And,
well, you can cross-sell within brand, and you can cross-sell to other brands too, by the way.
Exactly
And you can upsell, because if you're talking to your customers in that way to say, well, that's the product that you wanted, sir, but actually, I can see that there's an opportunity to actually upsell into a slightly better product that's available next week. Yeah, and that is a really good conversation because you're adding great value to your customer there and making sure that actually you're turning over your stock quicker, as opposed to just taking an order and waiting for it to turn up. I spent hours on the phone with purchasing procurement teams who said, well, I've ordered this and it's not turning up for 6 months. And I'm going to go, yeah, but you didn't actually have a conversation with anyone.
Yeah.
You just ordered it. Yeah. So actually, if you're engaging with Westcoast, you'll find us much more engaging backwards to say, don't order that, so order this one because it's available and it's much more likely to be available.
And that's kind of exactly the place that we've been. So our ASP over the past 2 years is way higher than it was. We sell. I'd say we probably. It wouldn't surprise me if our largest revenue number on HP is 800 series, followed by Workstation, then followed by 400 series. Whereas previously we were probably a 250, 400, 800 business, and so we have sold up the stack there. Like I say, our Lenovo Workstation business far better than it was.
And doing really well. The Workstation's doing really well in this current market. Yeah, because people are looking for a better bit of kit.
Yeah.
And they're looking for desktop workstations. Actually moved quite more to laptop workstations, and that's doing really, really strong, good business on HP and Lenovo, and soon to be Dell, of course, as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's been an education piece, though, like you said, of pushing people there, but also not just on stock. But we found probably over the past year, but it's been really prevalent in Q1 this year. We used to do a lot of entry-level device into K-12 education.
Yes.
The DoD has kind of hit that market pretty hard.
Yes.
And so our schools still have budgets, but they've got entry-level devices. So we're probably seeing more networking business. So we do some Aruba with you, obviously.
Right.
More networking business and more maybe gaming devices, things like esports, and just a totally different way of selling into some of these customers that we've been selling kind of entry-level devices in March to for years.
Yes.
And so it has been a totally different business model almost, and definitely our ASP is much higher because of things like A, availability, and then B, things like the DoD and the way that that's worked.
Well, I think that's been an extraordinary program. The Department of Education put huge amounts of product into the channel through a very limited number of resellers, of course. And whilst a lot of those were delivered through Westcoast and configured by Westcoast, actually the key here is that I think they need to get out and get to many more resellers now, because what's happened is that those large resellers aren't supporting their schools, and a lot of those products are still sat there and haven't been turned on yet.
Yeah, this is a conversation we had at BET with multiple schools. They've got stock rooms full of notebooks that have never been turned on.
That's exactly right.
Surprising to me.
Well, it is surprising, isn't it? You think, well, good heavens, all of these people needed laptops so badly out there in the channel. Now, what's important now is that they actually support more local resellers to make sure that the local schools are supported by a local network of resellers. They still need to be education specialists, I agree, and Misco certainly are. But actually, getting more local, and therefore so you could help the school with their deployment, is now the cool factor, I think, and the DFE needs to support that.
It's interesting. So the last part on that point is, do you think there is any responsibility on distribution to, I agree by the way on the first one first, and like I say, for us, it's been really good because we procure intelligently, but it's just more out of kind of interest. Does distribution have a role in trying to protect that, I don't know, VAR 50 to 500?
No, because actually, if you're VAR 501, why don't I get protected?
50 to 5,000.
So I don't think it's our job to do that. The market's job is our job is to be able to play the market and play it better than anyone else.
I agree.
Yeah, and therefore, I think the secret is be fast.
Yeah.
And agility and flexibility, and at Westcoast, that's one of our core values in our business, and I believe it's one of your core values at Misco too, by the way. And I think those two gel so beautifully together. If you're faster, generally what happens is when the referee blows the whistle, I've already got the ball.
Yeah.
So the fact is, the other guys are sort of still talking about how do I refer it to someone else.
Yeah.
Well, no. You look at Westcoast, our decision making is much faster than anyone else. Yeah. Our ability to move quicker is much better than anyone else. Yeah. And I think it helps to be privately owned. Yeah. We don't have tons of shareholders, quarterly reports to be able to do. we can move faster than anyone else, and I'm certain speed in this instance wins.
Yeah, so we literally did it with our proactive account manager, Lauren, the other day. She flagged up some X1s that were coming into stock. Then I got on the phone to, they were landing with you in a couple of weeks. I called our Lenovo account manager to make sure they were landing, and then Lauren checked they were unallocated, and we'd sold them before they came in, so it wasn't then coming on the sheet. But that's
well,
exactly
a bit of proactivity, a bit of speed,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden you won where everyone else is waiting. And I think that's exactly the point. Be fast and be agile, and use distribution, your relationship with distribution. Yeah. And by the way, Westcoast will have that relationship with every customer that we have. Yeah, and it doesn't matter what customer that you are. If you're proactive with us, we'll be absolutely proactive back, and making sure that we've got a really tight relationship. Because actually, we want everyone to win at this channel. Because actually, the more people that win, the better that we do, and the better the whole UK channel does.
Sure, good stuff. So, obviously, one of our kind of key partners at Misco is Logitech. Thrilled to hear you kind of working.
We're delighted to sign Logitech. I mean, really thrilled, by the way. And I think they're going to be one of the great new vendors for Westcoast this year. We've got several of them, but Logitech, you obviously do a great job with Logitech here. We're keen to make sure that we can continue supporting you on your Logitech business and grow it even further.
Sure. And you mentioned Dell as well, obviously a huge one.
We launched Dell, a client there next week, so that's going to be very exciting. And of course, Dell.
This will be after that, So
of course,
you'll have already launched a huge fanfare.
Okay. And of course, there will be a huge fanfare. By the way, we've been asking Dell to launch for plenty of years, and so we're absolutely thrilled to have them on board. But we've got Lenovo's server business coming on. We've got
Asus recently.
Asus, of course. We're signing up a whole range of security vendors at the moment as well. So actually, there's a real expansion going on at Westcoast. And that's another feature of being privately owned as a business, because effectively you can invest for a longer period. I don't need a payback within the next quarter before. It really needs to be a longer, a more strategic period. And I think that's how we need to work more closely with Misco to be more strategic for you and move you into some of these areas that we can really help with.
So is there an area of like emerging tech that either you're already in or that you would love to be in? Or
well, I'd say the number one investment for us this year, and probably the number one issue out there, is security. Cyber security is just the big issue. Long before the Russians invaded Ukraine. But actually, it is a massive issue for every single CEO out there, including your business and my business too. And therefore, hiring security skills is incredibly difficult. And actually, products and making sure that you have a full 360-degree protection for your customers and being able to articulate that and sell the products that are available to be able to do that are increasingly important. And I think that every reseller needs to do that, needs to be able to do that.
I agree. Kind of finally, I would say, we have a really good value proposition around ITAD, and sustainability is, I think for a long time it's been a bit of a buzzword, but I think now it's something that every business has to take seriously.
No question.
And our value proposition to customer is good, but as we've been growing, looking to get on more frameworks, there's a real drive to show what you're doing around sustainability. Westcoast has been really forthcoming in working with us on carbon reports and those kind of things that really you have to have for any framework.
You absolutely do. We could tell any reseller the carbon cost of the deliveries out to end users or directly to your warehouses, as an example. Our job is to make sure we also tell you which are the most sustainable products that are available in the channel today. So actually that you can take that to your market, but also you've got to make sure that you recycle some of the products, and that's where your ITAD partnerships come into play here, and will absolutely help you. So one of the key investments that we've made at Westcoast is called the Device Solutions team, and it starts right at the start of specking out these things, all the way to deploying it, and then of course recycling old product as well. And of course you can talk about device as a service, but actually it's services of devices in a whole 360-degree angle, because eventually, of course, like they do in France, 20% of all public sector goods and laptops now have to be recycled product. Well, don't tell me that's not coming to the UK, because it's coming like a trend.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and as I say, you see it more and more on the framework documents. More and more of the weighting is that way. And Westcoast have been really good at being forthcoming with all that information. And
well, personally, I'm very passionate about it. And we're very passionate about not only the sustainability and the carbon footprint that we have, and our job is to be net zero in Scope 1 and Scope 2 by 2035, but actually our focus is also around some of the work that we do with schools in our local area, and the work that we do promoting women in technology, the promotion of technology to young girls who will take this, because actually there is still a massive dearth of people who are doing technology in universities. As an example, we're writing work for Reading Technical College, we're delivering that work for the GMBQ programme. So we do lots of work to make sure that it's not just sustainability, but it's the social responsibility that we have as a business. And we are Britain's largest privately owned technology business. It is really important that we lead by example here. And Westcoast particularly are focused in education and promoting gender equality. And I think you'll find us being able to do that. And you can take some of that work and you can use it yourselves if you need it, because we're happy to give every reseller that opportunity to be able to do it. It's really important, and I think it's important for any public sector reseller, particularly to be able to demonstrate what they're doing in this area.
No, I agree. When it comes to CSR, there's always, to my mind, like not a delicate balance, but a balance between being led from the top, and actually you want kind of the team as a whole to kind of follow projects that they're passionate about themselves as well.
Sure.
Right? So I always think there's an element that has to be, the business has to show we care about corporate social responsibility, but also I feel like you need to leave some space for the guys. There's always going to be local projects that are close to the heart of some of the employees that I think often produce more value than some of the things that you as a business think these are the things that we should get behind.
No, I agree, and it's quite interesting. So we have a staff charity every year, so we choose which one it is, and this year the staff chose cancer research. But actually, when the cancer research team came in, we said, talk to me about the local projects that we can support that are relevant to cancer research that you are supporting in the Thames Valley area or in our Nottingham office area as an example, in order to be able to get our local teams supporting those local projects. So you can do that in a big charity, because that's quite useful, because they have lots of events and things to be able to help, but also you can narrow it down a bit to make sure it's more local. So that's the thing we do for our staff charity.
Yeah, and again, it's always very visible, and I think it shows when the guys come in. I mentioned to you before, and I'll kind of finish with a compliment, which is a rarity.
How nice.
Yeah, a rarity, Josh would probably say behind the camera. I do think you give your guys fantastic support. Your account manager is always backed up with an external, proactive. Your guys who lead the vendor-specific teams or the area-specific teams, Toby and the guys like
you can mention a long list of names, by the way, but there are. So this is a team effort, and we realise that being team spirited as a business isn't just about the team that we have at Westcoast and the interactions that we have internally. It's about how we partner with our customers and our suppliers too, and we are part of that extended team. We are part of your team. I want all our people to be that way, including myself, by the way. And I'm delighted to be able to speak to you on today's podcast.
It's very much appreciated. Your time is appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on.
Well, thank you for your business. That's really good.
Cheers.
I'm really delighted to be able to do that.
Cheers, Alex.
Cheers.
So that's it. Another episode in the books. I feel like we're really starting to get the hang of these things now. Thanks again to Mr. Tatham for joining us, pointing as though he's still there. That's the presence that the great man has. Thanks for all the support from Misco and Westcoast support from Misco. They've been a supporter of ours for a long time. So Alex actually kind of was booked on the podcast off the back of the first episode we did. Somebody dropped us a message saying Alex would be great for this. So if you can think of someone that you think could be good for the podcast, drop us a private message on LinkedIn, let us know. I'll get Josh to vet you and make sure you only have positive things to say about Misco, otherwise obviously no chance. But yeah, thanks so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again for episode 4 next month.